Welcome to the Ithihasa channel. We are going to talk about Kunti, how Kunti achieved that boon, the mantra that would get the devas to come and bear children for her. So we'll go back in time to Kunti's childhood when she was a little girl in her father's kingdom. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Anjaneyaya Namaha, Om Nagendraya Namaha, Om Amme Narayana, Om Guruve Namaha. So Kunti was not born Kunti. She was the daughter of a Vrishni king who was of the Yadava clan. The Yadava clan basically came down from the Soma god or the Soma Deva or the moon god. And over time, the Yadavas, we will go back to how the Yadava clan is and how the Vrishni clan is. So the Yadava clan had a king called Surya who had two children, a boy and a girl. The girl was called Pritha, the boy was called Vasudeva. Vasudeva, who later went on to become the father of Krishna or Vasudeva, and Pritha was a beautiful little child born to this king. He had a cousin called Kunti Boja in the neighboring kingdom, and Kunti Boja was childless. And because he was childless, he was going out of his mind. He didn't know what was happening, and he was becoming a bad administrator. He was not taking care of his duties, and so realized that Kunti Boja is going mad. And so he offered his daughter Pritha to Kunti Boja in adoption, and Kunti Boja lovingly took Kunti as his own daughter, Pritha as his own daughter. And because he wanted Pritha to be part of him, he named her Kunti after himself. And Kunti grew up in that kingdom like a beautiful child, a very gorgeous child, a very intelligent child, a very smart child of great character. Around the age of 13 or 14, when Kunti was 13 or 14, there was news that the great sage Durvasa was coming down. And Durvasa came down. When Durvasa comes, there is panic everywhere. There is panic mode everywhere because he is considered an Amsha of Shiva himself, a very great sage of a Brahma Rishi, very wild temper. It was said he had a wild temper. Of course, the temper was overrated because once in a while when he would curse, the curse would go horrible for the person who was at the receiving end. So people were petrified, and he had the reputation of having a horrible temper. Though, of course, most of the time he had it under check like a great rishi. But once you know Durvasa is coming, there's panic everywhere. You need to have an event manager who would keep everything absolutely perfect. And Kunti Bhoja knew that if Durvasa was coming, there was only one person in his kingdom who could take care of Durvasa absolutely well, and that was his own daughter Kunti. And Kunti took to that like a fish takes to water. Kunti was the absolute epitome of hospitality. Of course, she knew what was at stake. Very smart girl. And the glimmer of the calculating mind of Kunti started being seen at that time itself. Kunti would wash Durvasa's feet. She would put the dirty water on her head. She would wash his feet again, drink that water when it was a little cleaner, ensure that the best fruits were given to sage Durvasa. He was kept comfortable at all times. The deer skin that was laid out was absolutely perfect. The fruits were absolutely sweet. His kamandalu was filled at the right time, at the right amount, with the right amount of water. The place was kept absolutely clean. The temperature was maintained by Kunti herself fanning the great sage when he was in deep penance. He would ensure that nothing was wanting for the great sage. Water would be warm for him for his bath in the morning at the right temperature. And Kunti would herself ensure that the temperature was perfect. Everything was absolutely perfect. And seeing this immense service that Kunti did, Durvasa was taken up. And when it was time for Durvasa to leave, he felt he had to give her a boon. And something was forcing him to give her a mantra of the ages, a mantra from many, 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 many thousands of years before, a very ancient mantra. He himself didn't know why he was forced to give it. Fate played a hand and ensured that he gave the mantra to Kunti. For that matter, looking back, he couldn't even figure out why he came to that kingdom in the first place, into the kingdom of Kunti Bhoja in the first place. He couldn't figure out what drew him there. But some great hand of destiny pulled him to that kingdom, pulled him to the kingdom where Kunti served him immensely and made him recite the mantra to her. Kunti was a young girl of 14, a flowery, bubbly girl, and she didn't really take the sages, the rishis, the words too seriously when he said, I'm going to teach you a mantra. But nevertheless, seeing his grave countenance, she realized that he must be serious. He's not joking. So she quietly knelt down in front of him and said, Yes, so great sage, please tell me the mantra. And Durvasa started reciting the age-old mantra from many, many years ago, an ancient mantra that could command the devas of Devalok to come to earth at your bidding. And at the end of the mantra, he said, My child, this mantra will bring the deva of your choice. The deva that you think of will come to you. He cannot control himself. He will come to you. And then he stopped. This was still a young child of 14. How could he tell her that that mantra was to summon a deva who would bear a child for her? He couldn't do that. So he just stopped. He said, the deva will come and do your bidding. And so saying, he blessed her and went back into the northern mountains. Still confused as to why he went there in the first place. Still confused as to why he gave her the mantra in the first place. But such is destiny. Kunti, being a very intelligent woman, she obviously mastered the mantra, remembered it, and thought nothing of it until a few months later, when certain changes started coming into Kunti. She started becoming a woman. Changes started coming on her body and her mind. Her mind started wandering on to things of love, stories of passion, and her body started flowering and started demanding that these stories be real. And one day in the morning in her room, when she woke up, looking out of the window, she saw the sunbeam, the sun rise and the sunbeam fall on all the earth. She saw the sunbeam fall on the river and flowing in front of her room, of the fishes dancing away around in the river, the birds playing in the sun, the animals frolicking around in the sun, everyone seeming to want a piece of the sun. And at that time, something got into her and she wanted a piece of the sun herself. And she said, why not I call him over? The Rishi Durvasa has given me a mantra. I can summon anyone I want. Why not call Surya himself? Let's call him. And so saying, not knowing how to go ahead with the mantra, she prayed, closed her eyes, folded her hands, and recited this age-old ancient mantra which would summon Surya to her. And suddenly there was a flash of light in the room where she was. And she could feel a presence next to her, not 2-3 feet from her. She looked up and saw this great Surya Deva himself in all his splendor. He was a cold flame, hair gleaming like flame, face bright orange, body gleaming in the sun, in a vest that shone like gold. And he looked at her up and down. And the great Surya Deva, who was there from time immemorial, from far before the earth came into being, he was mesmerized by Kunti, the beautiful, gorgeous Kunti. And it is told that the great Surya Deva, who has seen so many creatures on this earth, just was flabbergasted seeing Kunti. And Kunti could see that in his eyes. And Kunti said, "You've come." And he said, "Yes, I have. Why wouldn't I? You spoke the mantra. I had to come. I didn't have a choice." And she said, "So why have you come?" And then Surya gave a funny grin and said, "Looks like the great sage didn't tell you why I was supposed to come here. Looks like he didn't inform you of what my duties were supposed to be. Well, I have come now and I'm there for you." And Kunti said, "Okay, you may go now." And Kunti knew something was up. He said, "No, dear Kunti, I have come to give you a child." And Kunti was surprised. Kunti couldn't believe it. And she said, "No, I can't have a child now. I'm not married. I'm still a small girl." And he said, "No, the mantra is too powerful. The mantra can't be taken back. You have to have a child by me." And Kunti started crying and saying, "What would my father think if he realized I wasn't a virgin? He would probably kill himself." And then Surya said, "I'll make you two promises. I will give you a child such that nobody would know you've had one. And after that, I will make you whole again. I will make you a virgin again." Obviously, the technique of rejuvenation existed then too. And so the great Surya took Kunti in his arms. He held her. She was shivering in fear of the unknown. But in those arms, she became calm and passion took over. And then Surya knew that it's not just this bond that he has to create with her, he has to do it in style. So he took her in his chariot. And like the great sun, the great Surya Dev, he went through the galaxies. And there's a description in the Mahabharata of the galaxies that Surya showed Kunti. He showed her the earth. He showed her how it's round. He showed her the stars. He showed her the planets. He went across the solar system. He went across the Milky Way. And he told her that in this journey of ours, time will stand still on earth. Obviously, this theory of relativity was well known far before Einstein propounded it. And he was able to take her at a speed at which time only passed where they were, but time on earth stood still. And in this exquisite spaceship, or his chariot, as you may call it, Surya took Kunti. He embraced her. He made her a woman. She could feel the heat of the sun, both within and without. And soon she lay tired and in excitement next to him. Looking at her tenderly, Surya Dev put his hand on her flat tummy and said, "My child grows within you, dear Kunti." That was when the real import of what happened hit Kunti. And she said, "I can't have a child." He said, "You will have a child. We will go through this whole pregnancy and delivery without time having passed on earth." And as he promised, a child was born of Kunti, a child of magnificent beauty, mirroring his beautiful father. A child which was born with a kavach and a kundala, that's an armor and earrings of some divine object not seen on earth. A kavacha that was part of his skin, which made his body radiant, which would grow with him in time, and kundala, which would be part of his ears, which would give him complete protection against any astra or any weapon that could be used against him. And the proud father Surya held his son Kar up and said, "He shall be called Karna. He shall be the greatest archer on the earth. His archery skills will be far greater than anything seen in any of the worlds accessible in those days. He will be generous to a fault. He will be absolutely sensitive, but he is born of a twisted fate, at a twisted time, at a twisted astrological time, which will deem him the most difficult life ever to be led by a man. He will be known for all the wonderful things for as long as I shall be around, for as long as the sun shall be around. But he will have a hard life. He will have a bad life. And through the twist of fate, he will land up on the wrong side. But my son, I will always be there for you. So saying, Surya handed this magnificent child to Kunti. Within an instant, they were back in the room where Kunti was. And in an instant, Surya disappeared and the flash of light disappeared. And this magnificent child, Karna, lay at the bed. Kunti looked at him. She herself was still a child of 14 or 15. She couldn't get that maternal instinct to come into her to feed the child. And the child didn't cry. The child just slept with his eyes closed, looking as beautiful as his handsome father, radiant as ever. But then the import of what happened came into Kunti and she realized that this is something she cannot handle. This is something that is beyond her. And panic came in. What if the people come in? What if people come in and see a child? She knew she was still a virgin because she could feel that correction happening when Surya was about to leave. But she knew that this child cannot be explained. So she went to the nearby room, next room, where she got a box of sandalwood in which she had received some gifts the previous day. She took a sheet of silk cloth, wrapped this beautiful baby in it, and lay him down in the sandalwood box. And then to protect him further, she took a few more silken cloths, put it all around him, and put a cloth over him, furtively looking round, hoping to see that none of the guards or her maids or her assistants see her. She ran to the banks of the river, and bending down, she lay that sandalwood box into the river. The cool, calm, calculating mind of Kunti can be seen in this episode when she was just a child of 14. It broke her heart, yes. Any mother's heart would be broken. Any person's heart would be broken if you were to leave your child onto a river in a floating box. It broke her heart, yes, but it needed to be done, and she decided to do it. One last time, she prayed to Surya, told him, take care of our child. Take care of this child. Be with him always. Ensure that he is protected. I will not be able to do it, but you can. Someday in the future, I will recognize this child from his kavacha and kundala, and I will know it's my child. But for now, take this child away. As the child was about to leave Kunti's arms in that box, it opened its eyes and gave a loving smile to Kunti, a smile that melted her heart, it melted her mind. She would never be the same woman again. And gurgling away in the river that gurgled with it, that little child of Surya and Kunti floated away downstream to be taken up by a man and his wife downstream. We will come to that story later. Kunti walked back to the palace a changed woman. Her heart was not like it used to be earlier, and she knew something had changed. Over the next 3 years, people saw all around that Kunti had flowered into an extremely gorgeous, beautiful woman. People would say that she was a woman who could only be worthy of the devas. How right were they? She was worthy only of the devas. People would say that there wasn't a man in this Bharat Varsha who would be her equal. In beauty, she was unparalleled. You couldn't say that this was a human. She belonged to the Gandharvas, it seemed like that. That was Kunti's beauty. But she was always quiet. She was always silent because she knew she carried a story in her, and she knew that only marriage to a wonderful man and having born children with that wonderful man would erase that story from her mind, the story of the child with Surya who she abandoned in the river. And 4 years down the line, when she was around 17 or 18, Kunti Bhoja organized a huge Swayamvara for Kunti. Kings from all of Bharatvarsha were called. The greatest of kings were called from all the land who came to the palace asking for Kunti's hand. And among them was the extremely handsome Pandu. He was an albino because of the curse by his father Krishna Dvaipayana, but he was extremely handsome nevertheless, well built, strong, muscular, huge arms, and Kunti knew it was love at first sight. This was the one man who could make her forget Surya Dev if she could. And she went straight to him and put that Vanamali over him and made him her husband. And that was how Pandu married Kunti. A victorious Pandu, victorious not more by his deeds, more by the fact that Kunti selected and chose him. A victorious Pandu brought this beautiful wife to Hastinapur, where he presented her to his elder brother Dhritarashtra and to Bhishma, his uncle, and said, "This is my wife, and she shall be my consort." Pandu was the Senapati of Hastinapur. His elder brother was Dhritarashtra, but because Dhritarashtra was blind, Dhritarashtra couldn't really manage the kingdom. So Pandu managed the kingdom for Dhritarashtra in his stead. Pandu was the regent, while Dhritarashtra was the king only in name. Pandu would be the one who ruled and took care of Hastinapur. Pandu was a brave warrior. Pandu would then take Hastinapur to new heights. Many years before Pandu, Bhishma was the main regent of the land. It was under Bhishma that Hastinapur boundaries were extended to most of Bharatvarsha. The kingdom of Hastinapur ruled over most of Bharatvarsha under the command of Bhishma. Bhishma was a warrior par excellence. There was no warrior like Bhishma. There probably would never be until probably Arjuna would combat him in the battlefield. But even then, there would be no warrior like Bhishma. He outshone his guru Parshurama. He outshone all the Pandavas also. And at that time, Bhishma had extended the borders of Hastinapur to all of Bharatvarsha. Over the years, when Bhishma started taking a back seat and letting his sons rule, that is Dhritarashtra and Pandu, murmurs started happening all over the distant areas around the kingdom that Hastinapur is not as strong as it used to be under Bhishma. Pandu changed all that. Taking an army with him, Pandu traversed north, south, east and west all around Hastinapur, went to kingdom after kingdom conquering them. Kingdoms which didn't fight paid their respects in terms of gold and in terms of allegiance to the Hastinapur kingdom and the army ruled by Pandu. In one of such pursuits through Bharatvarsha, trying to get the greatness of Hastinapur back to its old glory, under the command of Bhishma, Pandu invaded Madradesh, where the great king realized that it's no point fighting with Pandu. Rather, have him as his brother-in-law. He told Pandu, marry Madri. She's a beautiful woman. So Pandu said, I already have a wife, Kunti. And then it is okay for a king to have more than one wife. take her, Pandu, take her as your next wife. And so the chirpy, giggly, bubbly princess of Madradesh, Madri, excited about having this handsome young Pandu as her husband, couldn't control herself. She was overjoyed, and she just thought her luck had changed for the best. So then Pandu left Madradesh with his new bride, Madri, was as excited as ever of having a great husband like Pandu, who was also the great king of Kuru, of the Kuru dynasty. And so Pandu took her back to Hastinapur. Obviously, Kunti was not at all happy about this new development. A much younger woman, much chirpier, a very gorgeous woman coming into the same house that she is sharing with Pandu. Not okay, but being a very smart and intelligent woman, she held her peace. She kept the matter to herself. She refused to tell Pandu anything that disturbed her about this. And Pandu, being the smart man he was, learnt the fine art of managing two wives in one home, of successfully managing two wives in one home, of ensuring that there is peace and harmony all around him. And when the matters he knew would get a little stressful, he would go on one of those campaigns and fight, leaving Kunti to manage Madri. Kunti, he knew, was a very smart and calculating woman. Kunti, on her part, knew that at no point should she show that she is jealous of Madri. At no point should she show that she is even affected by Madri coming in. Without a doubt, Kunti couldn't get herself to like Madri. There was a deep-seated hatred in her heart towards Madri. But she kept that deep-seated hatred right where it belonged, deep in her heart. Never to show out even in a flicker of emotion. Never to show up even in a flicker of a sound bite or some sentence that could be then taken back to Pandu, and then she would fall in Pandu's eyes as a woman of poise, as a woman of great, who could hold herself up well. And so Kunti managed that house tactfully, ensuring that even Madri did not know that she was not loved, that she was not welcome. And Madri, the chirpy little girl, enjoyed her life in that household with Kunti and Pandu. Pandu, having come back from one of those long campaigns, decided that it is time for him to spend time with his wives, time for him to take care of them like they deserved, like the princesses that they were. And so he decided to take them for a proper honeymoon to the southern slopes of the Himalayas, where the story began, where he killed the stag and the deer who were having intercourse, received the curse, and now we've come back to the point where Pandu is excitedly asking Kunti to use the mantras that was taught to her by Durvasa to summon the Deva to beget children for her and for him. Om Nagendraya Namaha, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Amme Narayana, Om Anjanaya Namaha, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.